Lobbyists that represent companies who want to maintain the status quo of "you will own nothing and be happy" have come out against Stop Killing Games. Let's get into some of the arguments they gave. First off, online video games evolve over time after their initial release, providing consumers with regular new content, experiences, patches, and updates. This is highly valued by players and is required to compete in the market. It involves significant ongoing development expenditure over years and sometimes decades. Yeah, and so do offline video games. For instance, Cyberpunk 2077 with the release of Phantom Liberty, or Stellar Blade and Black Myth Wukong with its various updates. Oh, wait a minute, you want something a little older as an example? Well, I've used this one before, but I will keep using it because it's a really good example. Mario Kart Wii, which gets various new things made by the community on a routine basis, whether it be custom tracks, which sometimes new ones come out multiple times a day, or entirely new ways to play the game such as Blue Shell Showdown. Imposing a legal obligation to continue server support indefinitely, or to develop online video games in a specific technical manner that will allow permanent use, will raise the costs and risks of developing such games. Okay, 1. Stop Killing Games isn't requiring you to support servers indefinitely. Its goal is to leave games in a playable state once servers get taken down. And 2. Are you really trying to tell me with a straight face that it's cheaper in terms of cost to produce a game and maintain the servers for the game than it is to produce a single player game and release it on Steam? Option 1 has 2 costs associated with it. 1 is the game development cost, and 2 is the server cost, whether that cost be as a VPS or whether that be self-hosted in terms of the hardware, internet, and electricity. And option 2 only has 1 cost associated with it, which is the game development cost. So no, this argument at best is a misrepresentation, or at worst, a complete fabrication. All video games, whether digital or physical copies, are licensed, as is the case with virtually all digital works when consumers purchase online games. Regardless of the country of sale, what they acquire is a personal license to access and play the copy of the game they have purchased, in accordance with the game's terms of service. The consumer does not acquire ownership of that video game. These clear intellectual property rights underpin the entire market and enable a strong investment that the industry has seen for decades. There is no legal uncertainty about the status quo of video games. Okay, 2 things. 1, while all video games have a license associated with them, not all video games render the game functionally useless after maintaining the server costs is no longer commercially viable. That's what Stop Killing Games is trying to resolve. To stop building games in a manner where they become completely useless with time. And 2, it's not about the legal uncertainty, it's about the customer's uncertainty about how long the game will be playable. Requiring games to run on private servers would result in the inability for games companies to continue to protect players from illegal or harmful content or conduct, as their moderation and player safety teams would no longer be involved. Like Roblox, right? Right? Seen a lot of bad stuff in the Roblox space. Okay, so in all seriousness, all I need to do is find a private server that has moderation as an example of how your teams are not needed in the context of private servers. I wonder where I can find one of those. Actually, I have an idea. Why don't we go check out the WimFi servers? That ought to be perfect. Oh, look at this. Moderation. They don't allow VPNs. Not an acceptable me name. I agree, that's pretty not acceptable. A repeat offense? Not acceptable me name. Huh. You know, this must be one of those so-called Nazis I keep hearing so much about, right? Not acceptable me name, except this one isn't an automated ban. This one was a repeat offender where a moderator actually took charge. And then we also have people who are trying to cheat on their VR values as well. And again, a moderator taking charge here because this one wasn't automatic. And with this, I think I've made my point here. Your teams aren't needed in the context of private servers because private servers can take care of themselves. Moving on, in particular, cheating would become rampant without proper enforcement. Reporting systems designed to allow players to flag problematic content and behavior to games companies would no longer operate as intended or would have to be disabled entirely. Okay, so what I need to do is find a game with an anti-cheat that is utilized on a private server. Don't worry, I got you. I already know what I'm going to pick for this one. Right back to the Mario Kart Wii community with Ignorance is Bliss in 2014. And you know what private servers they run on? The exact same private servers. WimFi. No idea what you guys are trying to prove here. And again, you and your solutions are not needed in regards to private servers. The community can build their own anti-cheat if they deem it necessary for their private server, and the only reason that I could see that you would want this taken away is if your anti-cheat isn't just an anti-cheat, but a kernel level data collector that is being used to spy on all your activity. And you know, as they say, it's called glorified spyware for a reason. Releasing game code or server binaries to facilitate the creation of private servers operated by players could expose games companies to bad actors, malware, data breaches, and DDoS attacks. Okay, so what about releasing documentation that describes what data a given client expects from a server and how things should be communicated, and letting the community build their own maps and servers based on said documentation? That way there are no server binaries being released that can be tampered with, and this is the solution that I proposed in my previous video here. And this right here is the difference. While I understand the technical debt, I still do support the initiative and try to come up with solutions that would work even if they're still flawed. Meanwhile, you can't even support your customer base at a minimum. Allowing players to run private servers would present significant engineering and architectural challenges for many games due to the way in which online features are integrated and other proprietary systems and services required for the game. Creating a private server compatible version would be a prohibitive cost, in some cases years or decades after the game's initial release, when only a small audience remains. 1. How about we make games where the assets for the games are stored with the client, models, textures, etc. Oh, wait a minute, you want to sell skins and new characters for the game? Well, then they can be downloaded and added to the client once purchased. And this is coming from someone who might not be a game dev, but has an understanding of software development. I'm sure an actual game dev can come up with even better solutions. Nice try though. Oh, and 2, you shouldn't be making a private server compatible version of the game if it was designed from that way from the get-go. Here's a solution. Add a server redirect option in the settings where you can input an IP address or a domain name, which would go and redirect all the client's requests to that IP address or domain rather than to the main servers. That's a really simple thing to implement and wouldn't be a, quote, prohibitive cost. And again, someone who specializes in game development would be able to come up with even better solutions. This is how I know you're full of shit, because you're not even trying to look for solutions, instead you're just attacking the initiative. Allowing players to run private servers with online interaction possibilities could result in players using those games in ways that don't align with the games company's brand's values, leading to negative association with the brand, thereby harming its reputation. Okay, how about we stop trying to push your brand values onto customers and just let them enjoy the damn product? Did that ever occur to you? And your reputation should be built on top of how good the game you release is. Black Myth Wukong and Stellar Blade are great examples of this. People only care if the game is good, and that is where your brand reputation comes from, not from what the community goes and does with it. Such a requirement could lead to community-supported versions of games competing with official versions, potentially jeopardizing the financial investments of the video games companies. This would lead to confusion between trademarks, and the original trademark holder may be held responsible for the actions undertaken by a community-supported version. And you're right, it could lead to competition from community-supported versions. As an example, there is Mario Kart Midnight 2 and Retro Rewind. The difference here is they still require the base game in order to play, because it is a modification of the original. So the original game would still need to be purchased in order to even play these competitive alternatives. Oh, wait a minute, you must be talking about all the potential future products a games company could release. Well, it's my firm belief that companies with all the capital behind them should be able to produce a better product than what the community can with substantially less. And if you can't, then you're a shit company, and shit companies should go bankrupt without a government bailout. And also, you should be able to write a license that absolves a trademark holder of any responsibility of what the community does with your product. Kinda like some of the open source licenses absolve. The software is provided as is without warranty of any kind. Yeah, this is from the MIT license. So again, if a company can't make license with the functionality to absolve trademark holders of responsibility, then they are a shit company and should fail. Allowing consumers to create or run modified versions of online games would necessitate games companies to either license additional rights or refrain from enforcing them, effectively leading to a forfeiture of control over these rights. Or how about we don't have assets in a game that have temporary licensing around them? You're a business and you should be able to make sound business decisions. It's not our responsibility as customers to shoulder the burden of your failures. What a novel concept, right? Games depend on third-party services such as platforms on which the game is offered to the consumer. Releasing the code for those services, which would be necessary should a legal requirement allow player communities to run the game, may not be possible, as this would be potentially an IP infringement. Furthermore, game company servers are increasingly run in the cloud. If cloud servers are discontinued, which sometimes happens, this necessitates either shutting down older titles or creating costly workarounds. The latter may not always be possible. Okay, well then don't release the code and release documentation on exactly what the client expects from a server and vice versa, and let the community take it from there. Hey look, no IP infringement. And also, if adding an option in the settings to redirect all client requests to a particular IP address or domain name is too costly, then maybe you shouldn't be developing a game. For example, WinFi did it with a custom DNS to intercept those requests for those players who didn't want to go homebrew their wheat and patch their games. And finally, the Digital Content Directive provides consumers with price reduction and reimbursement rights in certain circumstances, but also with repair and replacement rights if a game service fails to achieve conformity with certain required warranties. Well then maybe these reimbursement rights in certain circumstances should expand to people getting their money back when a product they paid for is rendered unfunctional by the company that sold it. Notice the issue here, you are selling a product, not having them subscribe to a service. The reason you sell a license with temporary access is because the gaming industry was initially built on top of the concept of buying a product. And that is exactly what you're gaming on with your legalese licenses to rip away the product at your discretion.